Greetings and salutations. You are listening to the Into the North podcast, where we take a look at the competitive side of Commander format, also known as cEDH. I am one of your hosts, Lyndon, aka Noobzors, and today I'm joined by my co-hosts, Reed, aka Sick Robot.
How you doing?
And Morgan, aka Spleenface.
What's up, everyone?
Unfortunately, Matt couldn't be here for this episode, but look forward to his return in the next one. In this episode, we will be covering Displacer Kitten, everyone's favorite card from the newest Commander Legends set. Everyone's been talking about it all over Discord. What decks does this enable? New combo, blah blah blah. So we're gonna get into that. But before you turn off the episode because you're like, hey, I don't play blue. I don't play a deck where Displacer Kitten's gonna fit in. Hold on, don't turn off the episode yet. You can use this episode as a guide for how to evaluate cards that can be maybe a bit more complex. Displacer Kitten isn't the most straightforward card, it's got, potential value cases, combo cases, so, and how do you evaluate that compared to other combos? So you can take away some useful information on how to kind of abstractly evaluate cards. So please stick with us. But yeah, before we get into that, what have you guys been up to since the last episode? Anyone? Awesome. Okay. Well, I have binge watched. Netflix has this new series of like a reboot of Iron Chef, I guess. I think it's called like Iron Chef Quest for the Legendary something. I don't know. But it was really good. It was, I don't know. Morgan, I know you're not a huge anime fan. Reed, you watch a bit, I think.
No,
not at all.
I sort of hate like talking about this to the world because I just like it exposes me to like there's so much surface area to just like to just make jokes at my expense about me being like an elitist or like an ultra weeb or whatever, but I basically don't watch anime at all. I do read a fair amount of manga. Don't at me.
Wow, that is that is not where I was expecting that to go.
Yeah.
Wow. I guess Matt's the only other one who really watches a decent amount of anime. Anyway, there's this anime called Food Wars, which is quite popular, and it's like watching real life Food Wars. It was so sick. Like all the obviously like Iron Chef, they're like they're some of the world's best chefs, and you get to watch like Michelin star chefs like duke it out in competition, and serving to like other like renowned food critics and restaurateurs like Wolfgang Puck and whatever. It was super cool. Yeah, binge that whole show. Yeah, highly recommend. It seems like they're probably gonna do a second season.
What's messed up though is that like Lyndon is always the one that's pushing us to like shill and push our content and try and expand and whatever. And like then he just takes this section and just shills other people's content for nothing. Like, we don't even get commission or, like, what is this?
What, are we gonna go to Netflix and ask them to...
Never had a sponsored podcast. Just give it away free advertising like nobody's business.
Listen, okay? I like what I like, and I like it, and I want other people to enjoy it as well. That's why I'm here recommending all these shows.
You should listen, everyone.
Again, recommend everyone go watch Severance again, okay? Come on, please.
Listen, everyone, shut off our podcast and go watch this other show.
I didn't say that, guys. Guys, stay with the podcast before you go watch any of my recommendations.
I was about to say every time you advertise for some other piece of content, you should just not name it and let the listeners/viewers figure out what you're talking about by intuition alone.
Oh no. Is it a crime to like things now? Is that advertising? Yes. If I'm merely saying what I like? Okay.
No, the problem is being genuine. That's really the issue.
Mm-hmm.
That I genuinely like it?
Yeah, it's got
no, that you're expressing an opinion genuinely. It doesn't matter what the opinion is.
Okay. Okay. Well, since you guys live terrible, boring lives and have nothing to share with our lovely audience.
Well, except we do get to flex a little bit. The MLC is ongoing, and Reed and I believe, are both in the top 3 of our conference. So that's
I think so.
pretty
Yeah.
cool.
You guys are in the same conference,
Pretty
right?
hot.
We're in
We
the same
are.
division,
Okay, same division.
which is like there's 2 conferences of 16 people, each made up of 4 divisions of 4, and we're in the same 4.
That's honestly quite impressive because obviously you'd be cannibalizing, some of each other's wins. So the fact that you guys are both placing so highly is actually very impressive.
Yeah,
I
you
mean,
would-
I think
you
it
would
just goes to
so,
show that
except,
you guys are both really lucky, and we're just kind of crap cEDH players, and it's better lucky than good, right?
As a wise
that's
man
the
once
takeaway?
said, "Better lucky than good."
although I'm not sure that I can actually say that about my my past win when it was certainly the most political of my MLC wins so far.
In my last game, my 3 draws in a row were when I had a Yisan in play to go for a Yisan Thoracle combo, were Memory's Journey, Dread Return, Thoracle. I was like, this was not this ain't
The
it.
perfect sequence of draws. I don't know what you're talking about.
I honestly can't believe people are letting Reed get away with anything political in cEDH. Playing against Reed. There's one simple trick that doctors don't want you to know, which is just tune him out, man. You start saying stuff, you're like, volume down, and perfect. Let's carry on.
They're afraid of
I
me
ain't
because-
reading all that, but
Yeah.
that's nice for you. Or I'm sorry that happened.
Yeah. Cool. So without further ado, let's jump into housekeeping. And as always in housekeeping, we like to give a shout out to our new patrons. So big shout outs to that Elsha Top guy.
And to Dylan S.
You rock. I mean, we always give a shout out to new patrons, but I feel like we should start including in this segment just a shout out to like a recurring patron. Like because our it's one thing to celebrate new patrons, but it's the patrons who have been donating to us over the years as we've been producing content, and who've been kind of always there, that are really the kind of backbone of our support. And as we say in the or as I say in the end of the episode, help us working towards improving the quality of the podcast. So yeah, thanks a lot to our new patrons, and maybe in the future we'll start shutting out recurring patrons. But yeah, that's housekeeping. Moving on to new developments. I guess I'll throw this first one to Reed.
Sure. So as of the release of this episode, I believe it will have been about a week since the last Decklist database update. Worked pretty hard on this one. There was actually the update before this one, we had I think 332 submissions, or there was 331 Decklist submissions, and we were sort of expecting that it would go down for the next one. Well, because we're actually looking at tightening up our the timelines for our updates and stuff like that. And it turned out that it would actually ended up being the exact same number of submissions.
Oh wow.
Even with a shorter time span. So yeah, it took us a bit, but we got it out. So yeah, go check it out. Remember to check out the Brewers Corner for new entries, because there's always some new cool stuff on there. There's definitely some interesting stuff this time around that you should go check out if you haven't looked at it already. And aside from that, yeah, just make sure to keep submitting your lists. More work for us, but also makes the resource better for the community. So thanks for the support, everyone.
Yeah, you should also just basically DDoS their the submission form. You should just take the same list and then like change a card and then submit it, and then just just make their sorry, don't do that. Definitely don't do that. Yeah, big ups to all the people at the database who do a ton of work for free. And it's a lot of work that they're just volunteering their time to put in and make the community better and create this awesome resource. So yeah, kudos to you guys.
We try.
Next we've got I guess, well, just a couple tournament announcements, upcoming tournaments. Morgan and Reed, since you guys are the ones going to this one, I'll let you shill. Get your shilling.
Sure. So Reed and I believe we've mentioned this before, but we're locked in. We're going to Tier 1 Con in Copenhagen on the I believe it's the 6th and 7th of August. So if you can make it out to there, it should be awesome. The tournament prizes include a twister for the winner.
Unreal, dude. Unreal.
And yeah, last year it was a ton of fun. They had lots of people there. Like there was the main event, but they also had a pretty good shop, and people were just jamming games at the hotel bar in the venue. So definitely, if that's something you can make it out to, you should.
I am devastated I'm not making it this year. Just to kind of like reiterate for people who maybe new listeners who weren't paying attention last year when we were kind of talking about Tier 1 Con and kind of after Tier 1 Con. The event is so much fun. Just it's not even the event itself, it's everything around it. It's a big gathering of just so many like content creators and just cEDH players, enthusiasts, and it was just unlike anything I've ever experienced in terms of cEDH. It really felt like kind of a watershed moment for the cEDH community, and it was so much fun hanging out with everyone like outside of the event, getting food, getting drinks, playing like games like late into the night. It was an absolute blast. So if you can make it and you're like, oh, maybe I don't want to play in the tournament or whatever, it's like go and just hang out with people. That's where all the fun is to be had. Although no, sorry, that's where most of the fun to be had. The event was also certainly a lot of fun itself.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I mean,
high
we were playing
recommendations.
Cody, so it could only be so fun. But
I think the result of the event sort of upped the fun factor for me. Past sort of outweighs the unfunness of playing the deck that I played.
But yeah, so beyond Tier 1 Con, we also have Oktoberfest and Punt City. So I mean, I guess we're getting a bit of an early lead shilling Oktoberfest.
Well, yeah, they've both been announced. These are like the large IRL tournaments that have been announced so far, so we'll just announce them and go through real quick. Oktoberfest, I don't think has a date locked in, but will be in Philadelphia, I believe, as well as Punt City. They're actually, I think, both in Philadelphia this year.
I think one of them's technically in Phoenixville or somewhere like just outside of Philadelphia, but
approximately in the greater Philadelphia area. I don't know.
They're both accessed via the Philadelphia airport.
Yeah, there you go. That's Philadelphia for me. Anyway, so Punt City is being run by Eminence Events and is going to be happening August 27th to 28th that weekend. And it looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. I think tickets are actually already sold out. So might be rough if you haven't already bought there, but it looks like it's going to be a good time. And definitely make sure to check out the stream for that one, because I believe they'll be streaming the event. And then Oktoberfest is going to be happening sometime in, I believe, late October, maybe early November this time.
I think I believe it's been moved to early November, which is funny because actual Oktoberfest is in September, so we've got the whole
like a 2-month gap.
Cool.
Yeah.
Also, can we just take a moment? I think we've done this a bit, especially at that last Tier 1 Con, but to have 3 kind of major in-person cEDH events kind of like on the calendar is kind of wild. Eh?
I mean,
like,
it was insane last year when we did Tier 1 Con, and then we ended up spending the rest of the week in Europe. And by the time we got back the next weekend, there had already been like another major online event that had happened, and then there was like another event the weekend after that in terms of tournaments. And this year it seems like it's even more packed. It's going to be like Tier 1 Con. I'm assuming there are going to be at least a couple of like online events sort of that area, and then like immediately Punt City like 3 weeks later.
And this is all like community organized, right? Like there's no like official WotC kind of directive or whatever. And then we're not like, kind of just doing command fest sort of things. Like these are independently organized standalone events, and they've been successful, and there's just more and more of them, and it's just super awesome. Yeah, I just really wanted to kind of revel in that for a minute. But that's it for new developments. Let's jump in to the meat and potatoes of the episode and talk about Displacer Kitten.
Oh yeah.
So I'll let you guys kind of take the floor and start leading this discussion here. Tell me about Displacer.
Sure. Well, we should at least, I guess, first actually tell our listeners if they haven't seen the new set yet or haven't seen the card. At least we'll review for anybody that might not be super familiar with the card what Displacer Kitten actually does. So Displacer Kitten is a creature. It's a blue creature. It costs 3 and a blue to cast. It's a cat beast, and it's a 2/2 with a card text. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, exile up to 1 target non-land permanent you control, then return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control. So, pretty neat, and there's a lot of flexibility there, and there's a lot of axes that this thing could be cool on. I think we should probably go through and... So I think it might be a good idea to just like go over some of the core synergies with the card first and sort of go over why people are playing it, and then we'll sort of get into more nitty-gritty of the actual card, where it fits in, all that kind of good stuff.
What are the standout things that when just reading the text of Kitten that you immediately think, hey, I want to do this in cEDH?
Well, so I think
the first like the comparison that people drew, and obviously it's an exaggerated comparison, but the effect with any mana rock is reminiscent of a miniature paradox engine, in that every non-creature spell you're casting essentially just lets you untap a mana rock. So I guess like it's also, it could be compared to something like a Burgi or a Stormkiln Artist. It sort of fits in that class of cards before you start looking for like even more specific interactions.
Yeah, it's sort of like you have a rock in play, and it just lets you like effectively discount them. I think there's probably the other immediate comparison that people are looking at, or like immediate thing that other people are looking at, which is just abusing ETB effects with it. Obviously, Displacer Kitten plus something like Eternal Witness is pretty cool. If you have like 2 cantrips, you can like cycle the cantrips back and forth continuously. So I can go like Brainstorm, get back like Flicker the Ewig, get back a Ponder, Flicker the Ewig, get back a Brainstorm, that kind of stuff. Really any ETB effects, obviously like this with Rex Sage or a Skyclave Apparition is pretty hot. And then this plus basically like any Planeswalker too. I think those are the other big ones. In terms of like main deck slots, I think people, especially in other formats, but also for some decks for cEDH, like this plus Narset's pretty cool. You just get to like, basically, if you can cast the stuff that you find off of Narset, you can just like continue chaining through. So you get to like, look at the top 4, cast a thing, blink the Narset, look at the next top 4. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then obviously it has some synergies with like Commander Planeswalkers. Tevesh is a big one. I think
Jeska is also pretty hot.
Jeska. The fact that you can sort of like, you can like 0 Jeska on like a Thrasios if it can do 3 damage, and then like you cast something, Flicker the Displacer Kitten, 0 on Thrasios again, now it's doing 9 damage. Do it one more time, and now it's a lethal attacker with like just like a 1 damage attacker, and that's not even like, if you have like a 3 power commander, then that's a kill in like 2 activations. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, so like I feel like that's like sort of all the obvious stuff that people saw as soon as the card was spoiled. But there's also some cooler stuff going on here. You can go a bit further down the rabbit hole. I mean, so the big one that people probably thought about or were thinking about, but sort of doesn't quite work, is that with Eternal Witness, you're like sort of almost at a point where you can like cast a Lotus Petal and then like eboot back the Lotus Petal and like make infinite mana off of that. The issue there is that because Displacer Kitten's effect happens, its ability triggers on the cast of the card. You'd actually need 2 Lotus Petals to go back and forth with an Eternal Witness, or you would need like a Lotus Petal and an LED, and then at that point you're like a 4-card combo, which is or not even. Well, you have to be able to sacrifice itself. I guess Mox Diamond
you just need the trigger.
Yeah. But yeah, you're at the point where it's like a 4-card combo, and like it's nice if you're already playing all of those cards, but it's not really a primary thing to with deck. But that does spark the question: well, are there lower number of cards required to do combos with this card? And there most certainly are. There's a bunch of them, and we could probably classify them into like 2 sort of types of combos, I guess, which is like One is the producing infinite mana combos with Kitten, and then the other is probably doing like tutor chain shenanigans with it. I think the big ones right now are there's a combo with Displacer Kitten plus 3 Teferi plus I think it's any just 0 mana artifact, which lets you basically you can cast the 0 mana artifact, Displacer Kitten blanks Teferi, and then you use Teferi to bounce the artifact back to your hand, draw a card, and then you just do it again because it resets Teferi every time. So it lets you draw your deck, and if you're using a mana rock like a mana crypt or something like that to do that loop, then you're also making a bunch of mana, so that's pretty cool. You do very similar things with Luris. Luris lets you recast LED or Lotus Petal from the graveyard continuously. You can also do a similar thing with Venser. Venser with a mana positive rock will do it. It's effectively like a make your own Hellbreaker horror sort of kind of thing. But yeah, and then there's the other class, which is I think the thing that people are getting like pretty excited about, like super excited about, which is like using Kitten to tutor chain. I know Morgan, you've been working on this for
Morgan, the
decks.
tutor chain Vanifar expert, they call him. Why don't you talk to us about Kitten and a little old artifact that costs 3 generic and a Phyrexian green?
Yeah, so Birthing Pod is a card for sure.
Did I say enchantment or did I say
artifact? Sure you said
artifact?
It's an artifact.
Okay.
Cool. Birthing Pod and to a lesser extent Vivian on the Hunt are both effects that normally suffer from the fact that you can basically only use them once a turn. But the Kitten definitely resets it pretty easily. You just need to cast a non-creature spell. And so this means that it's very easy to like build chains that essentially just require having Pod, activating a few times, and casting one non-creature spell. And then essentially the problem with a lot of Pod chains is that more or less everything in the chain is like useless, right? Like chaining through, I don't know, Pestermite.
They're so dead.
like Pestermite doesn't do anything. So like unless you specifically are doing a Kiki combo where like you have like Felidar into Karmic and then Felidar into Kiki, and then you can go off with the Felidar. But this sort of gives you access to chains where you chain into the Kitten, you reset, and then you go and then you chain something else into, say, like a Trinket Mage or a Spell Seeker or whatever, and then you can effectively assemble a 2-card combo because Displacer Kitten is a combo piece that also untaps the Pod relatively easily, which is like hasn't existed except in Red, where you had Kiki, which meant that things that untap stuff are just inherently combo pieces, which is why typically Pod has been relegated to decks with red in them, Blood Pod, Blue Pod, that sort of thing. Now you have much cleaner lines outside of red, and those lines, first of all, they don't, like, because Displacer Kitten is only 4, you don't have to have like this giant chain that gets you up to 5 or 6 or whatever.
Yeah,
so you don't
especially in like stuff like Thrasios Timno, where you're likely to have a 3 in play already when you're going up.
Yeah. And then so you don't have to have a whole bunch of slots at higher CMCs to make your chains work, and also like it's just not that hard to assemble these like 2-card Displacer Kitten based combos without the Pod.
Also, the cards you are running to assemble the combo, or like to enable the combo, are like a lot less stinky than previous Pod combo enablers. Like Trinket Mage, it's not. I mean, decks usually aren't just running Trinket Mage main deck for.
Sure, but
very
very
specific
like
decks,
Spell
right?
Seeker is like totally fine.
Well, that's what I'm saying, right? It's like unlike Pestermite or Felidar Guardian and Kiki, where you're running a bit of a stinker, like Trinket Mage, and some of these cards have you're raising the floor on your combo pieces, which is nice.
Yeah. Actually, Morgan, do you want to sort of like break down like some of the actual like win lines there, because we haven't really gone through those. We've sort of been talking around like, you get like a Trinket Mage, or you get a Spell Seeker in play, and then like that's just it.
Sure.
Which, like,
so
is true, but yeah.
Sure. So, the basic Trinket Mage lines are essentially you're going to be playing LED and Lotus Petal, and then the sort of quote unquote dead card you have to put in to enable that is just Elixir of Immortality. And so that loop just nets you mana as long as you have one other rock that you can hold to let you tutor after you activate the elixir, which can literally, as Lyndon said, just be your Mox Diamond, or it could be something like a Spell Bomb or a Top that lets you draw your deck. If you aren't in, like, if your commander isn't an infinite outlet, but if your commander is an infinite outlet like Thrasios, you don't even need that, so you just need the elixir. And then with Spellseeker, you have some chain that usually involves something like just a dark ritual. You get a dark ritual, you cast it. You get an entomb, you cast it. You get a reanimate, you cast it. You get a consult, you cast it, and the entomb obviously finds Thassa's Oracle, and voila. So if you have Displacer Kitten, a Spellseeker ETB, and a single black mana, you win the game.
Like a build your own Anala. Great.
Basically.
Nice.
So yeah, I mean, like, it's there, as you can tell, there's a lot going on with the card. But I think even more interesting than, like, probably, like, what the card actually does is really what's, like, interesting to me is where it fits and how it affects the decks that it's going to fit into. And even aside from all of that, like, what decks it might even create. Because there's some very real space here for some building around of some combos and strategies that use the kitten that haven't really existed up to this point because the card didn't exist yet. But I think, yeah, like, if we could probably take a look at some of the decks that it'll probably go into, maybe, like, pre-existing, just to give an idea, and that we can sort of, like, on, because I think some of the decks are pretty interesting too. I mean, certainly there's I'll say at least I've seen a couple of decks that were already playing Hullbreaker Horror in the 99 without doing any polymorph shenanigans. There are some like Thrasios Vile lists. I think there have been some people playing like mid-range Thrasios Tymna lists with Hullbreaker Horror in them, just as, like, a really resilient win con and a card that just sort of takes over the game on its own, even when you can't win the game off of it. And I think Kitten actually slots really effectively into a lot of those lists, just because you're already doing a lot of the, like, mana rock shenanigans of, like, having mana rocks in play, having multiple mana rocks, like, ready to go at a moment's notice. You're typically already playing a relatively high amount of non-creature spells, and then a lot of the time you're also in Thrasios in those decks, so you have, like, this outlet for all this additional mana that you're making. And if you're just, like, doing the Trinket Mage or Spellseeker stuff, even just one of those is totally fine in the deck, because, like especially Trinket Mage and, like, Hullbreaker Horde decks, I feel like that's totally fine, right? Like, you're just gonna Trinket Mage for, like, a mana crypt that you need anyway to do Hullbreaker Horror shenanigans. So that seems like a totally easy slot in for me.
I mean, I'm not too happy to, like, slot in, like, a LED or other, like, a bunch of other stuff that I wasn't running before to enable Kitten in decks that are, running, like you said, non-polymorph Hullbreaker decks. Like, if Hullbreaker's not even, like, the plan A, it's kind of like the plan B. I'm not super enthused to do that, but, there is definitely some consideration for, like, a kind of retooling of the deck to, play more into Kitten, certainly.
Yeah, definitely. Morgan, I actually heard that, like, people have been considering this for Razaketh as well.
Yeah,
like,
so Razaketh has typically run Auriok Salvagers to combo with your Lion's Eye Diamond, and there's been a perennial debate on that it sounds like I'm losing, but I don't I don't engage perhaps as much as I should, versus whether your slot to buy back your LED to fix your mana during your Razaketh combo should be Eternal Witness or Luris. But if you do play Luris, then your backup combo. So like normally the deck just wins with Thoracle, and then your backup combo was to do some loopy shenanigans with making infinite mana using your Auriok Salvager's LED, Bomberman as it's known, and then draw your deck and use either Twister or Endurance and loop your spells, yada yada. We've all been there. But you could cut the Auriok Salvager if you're playing Luris. You could just straight swap Auriok Salvagers for Displacer Kitten. It means that combo itself is worse, in that it's now a 3-card combo, though admittedly you can also combo with Lotus Petal, as well as LED, which is nice because it gives you a backup combo that doesn't involve discarding your hand. But the card is just much more generically useful than Auriok Salvagers, which does like more or less nothing outside of the combo.
Even the combo with Bomberman is like highly suspect.
Whereas with this, you can obviously you can flicker things like your Spellseeker. You could reset your Mystic Remora or protect things from removal.
I'm just resetting rocks and using it for that pseudo paradox engine mode, like you said, is pretty good. Like, I mean, looking at Displacer Kitten, I'd even thought about it for Baral and being like, hey, well, Baral discounts my generic mana. If I got a rock that works well with Displacer Kitten, this could just discount my blue mana as well.
Yeah.
But,
so generally,
I just don't think I have enough of those rocks.
Generally, cat stacks aren't on too many rocks. It just doesn't like the mid-rangey strategy means that often you want to be able to flex the Collector Roof as a slot, and like dorks are just very useful because they also provide the sacrifice fodder for Razaketh that you need. But another thing you can do is you can do hilariously cheesy things with like Animate Dead and Dance of the Dead. Like, so if you have a creature animated, like you just use it for value on, say, like a Notion Thief. If you have a non-creature spell and an instant, you can cast the non-creature spell, flicker the Animate Dead, get something else, and then with the sacrifice trigger on the stack, cast the instant, and then flicker whatever you originally had Animate Deaded, and you still get to keep it. So there's like some cute things you can do with that. And so it's essentially like you play a slightly less dead card, like Kitten versus Salvagers, just a more flexible card, but you make your backup combo a little bit worse, which I think is generally, like, to me, that trade-off makes a certain amount of sense in that like your backup combo, in a perfect world you wouldn't even feel the need to run your backup combo. So having it be bad and just be like, oh, because my Thassa's Oracle got exiled, or like this is a really problem. There's a very
there's a Torpor Orb in play. I don't have time to fund.
There's a Torpor Orb. I don't have whatever. So like, I mean, that's also not gonna. That's probably gonna be a problem with Displacer Kitten. But but yeah, it's more like the backup combo in cats is generally for when your Thoracle is completely inaccessible, because you have Reanimate, so it being in the graveyard doesn't matter. It basically has to be in exile. So in that case, you just play a mid-range game, you just try and take over the game, generate such a huge resource advantage that it doesn't really matter how bad your backup combo is the logic. But I think that's also like an interesting, I won't get into this too deeply, there's two schools of thought around the play pattern in cats on whether you are like a mid-range deck or whether, like, because it's pretty easy to assemble Bomberman. So like it can often just be nice to be like, okay, cool, well, I have this LED and I'll just Neoform my Tymna and good game, everyone. Versus, okay, I'll just keep drawing cards and playing this mid-range game until, I'm like really confident I can go for that. So you definitely are losing a degree of flexibility.
I would assume
the Displacer Kitten
that a lot of the opinions and the standpoints on that are probably pretty well informed by the meta that you're playing cats into. It seems
absolutely
to be like, like, especially if you don't have the time for some reason or another, it would make sense to continue with Bomberman, just because like if you're just trying to like end games, relatively quickly, and you're just trying to attack on a different axis rather than trying to be like more mid-rangey, then yeah.
Yeah, certainly I'm picturing myself just like going for random turn 3 and turn 4 Bombermans in our meta, and it sounds like a bad time.
Sounds like you win every 3 in 100 games.
It's just, yeah, I'll crack this LED and I'll suddenly have 5 removal spells pointed at the Auriok Salvagers. Yeah, lose my hand, great time.
Yeah, I mean, I think playing in our meta has certainly severely affected or severely colored my perception of Bomberman. I think that combo is basically unplayable.
Well,
but
it's a 3-card combo.
That is definitely
right?
a function of playing in our meta. I will say, I do think that you're kind of making comments specifically about cats in terms of making your backup combo, less, I guess, robust or strong in favor of a card that's better on average, just better, card quality. Throw back to however many episodes that. But I think that's generally just a good deck building philosophy. I am really reluctant. I think people overemphasize redundancy in cEDH, and I will not spin this off into too big of a tangent. But I did just want to say that I think don't go I don't think your deck should have a plan D. Honestly, I think going to plan C is you should not be putting in extra cards for a plan C. Your plan C should be stuff that's cobbled together of what's already in your deck because you want to run it. Your plan B, I am very reluctant to put in any dead cards for a plan B. So I mean I think Displacer Kitten as a plan B backup for Auriok is a significant.
That being said, so you sort of touched on Brawl there. I'm actually, another thing that I'm interested about with Kitten specifically is that it seems like it's actually a pretty powerful slot in for some low color blue decks, which I know you've been playing a lot of over the past I guess year and a half at this point.
Yeah, almost 2 years.
Are there any obvious slot ins that you can see for Displacer Kitten? Because I know I think there's probably going to be there probably has already been some testing, and I can't imagine that they actually would have probably gone through with it, but I would have thought that Displacer Kitten fits pretty nicely into the polymorphless Urza build, so UPS. Just because it does a lot of the jobs of Hullbreaker Horror, while also being significantly cheaper, and you can also do some other cool stuff just flickering Urza over and over and over again to get a bunch of constructs to just beat the table to death.
Yeah, so. I think Kitten is insane in Urza. Because I think one of Urza's, and I mean, this from our meta, one of Urza's weirdly strongest abilities is making a construct.
Yeah.
So if every time you cast a spell you make a construct, I know, and people will be like, well, there's cards what's that super evolved Delver?
Aberrant
Abomination or something
flips
like that?
into something aberration.
Yeah.
But Dose into Perfection?
That one's sick. That one's sick, but it's that. That's not a cEDH. That's not a cEDH card. Or there's mechanized. Is it mechanized production, the one they run in? Or metallurgic summonings? I'm thinking maybe.
Yeah, the metallurgic summonings is the one whenever you cast instant sorcery, you make an XX, and then
it's the
you
worst
can pay a bunch
Typhoon.
of mana. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's the worst Shark Typhoon. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah.
No.
But the point being is that these cards are not playable, but making a construct for every time you cast an instant or a non-creature spell, you make a construct for 4 mana to put that down. Which, especially in Urza, when your constructs are also mana, that's insane. That's a game-winning card. So I definitely see it in places like Urza. Although I have looked at Kitten for some of my other low-color blue decks. I mean, I don't play Urza, but that was just me commenting on it. But for my personal low-color blue decks, I don't think it makes the cut in any of them. Just because I would like it in Baral for the color cost reduction. If it just had your spells, whenever you cast a spell, make a treasure or something of that effect that reduces my blue guaranteed. I think I'd for sure run that. But because in mono blue you're short on the things that Displacer Kitten can flicker to immediately kind of recoup your blue mana, I don't think it's going to make the cut, and then I just don't think it fits in some of my other decks. So, not not gonna make it into any of the decks that I'm working on currently. But
I think it would be pretty cool if like Riel triggered on like the first discard after it had been cast that turn, or like it didn't track before.
Yeah, like
itself that
if it
turn.
was like when you discard cards, draw that many cards, this ability triggers only once each turn.
Yeah.
That'd
That'd be
be
pretty
nuts.
hot, and yeah.
I don't even know if I'd run it then, but it would definitely be
Really?
more of a
Really?
consideration.
You just
Well,
cast
no, because-
Firestorm, get a trigger, flicker my thing, and then do it again with
The
next,
deck
like,
isn't.
discard
I mean,
of
you guys
cards
have
that
played
I have.
against a lot, right? It's not really a stormy deck, right? It's
No,
more
but
of a
it just,
control
that just
deck.
makes it so easy to store.
Yeah, you can
right?
you can
Like,
just start
with this.
chaining things.
Like
certainly,
I think
but,
you would change the deck to like
You might,
account
but
for
I don't know if building around
Like, not a
kittens
huge
so
amount,
extensively
but-
in Riel, to be more like that would be the strongest way to go with the deck. This is a bit of a digression. So
Yeah.
let's
We
get
did,
it back on
we
track.
did talk earlier as well. So obviously, again, being like a sort of Bergie is sort of interesting for a lot of decks. I think like potentially stuff like Calamax might sort of want it. I think there's probably room for it in
Calamax.
Actually-
Calamax needs to be tapped.
yeah. You
What?
I mean you don't flick.
no, you're not blinking Calamax, you're blinking all the other stuff.
Like what? Sorry.
Like rocks, like you just want to
Oh,
discount
Dockside?
okay. Just for the
right?
rocks, sure.
or
yeah.
Dockside or whatever, right? Actually, this plus Dockside also pretty disgusting.
Yeah. Okay.
Um,
Well, I mean, Riel runs Dockside.
yeah.
You know, like
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
you can throw that into any deck, and just Kitten plus Dockside. Is,
well,
is insane.
that turns it from discount pension into actually just like better pension. a lot of the
Omniscience. It's
time, right?
omniscience.
Like-
Yeah.
But yeah, so like I think the sort of being like a weird Bergie type effect is interesting for a lot of decks. I think Teamer is actually probably going to use that the most, just because you were already like running Bergie type effects in like Teamer style Storm decks, and that like those colors really take advantage of it the best because you have like the creature tutors for the Kitten, and then you have like red for the Bergie that you're already playing. You have Docksides. You have like all of these spells that you want to cast. That's interesting.
I can't believe I actually didn't think about this until literally sitting here right now. But I can cut Recruiter and Kiki and Cord for 4.
Oh, because you can just get you can just get Trinket Mage and Displacer. That's amazing.
That's sick. Yeah. What?
Doesn't let you win at instant speed, but yeah, you take that out all day.
I mean, the Recruiter, like the way I currently have it set up with the Coercive Recruiter, like sometimes lets you win at instant speed
When
if someone
somebody
Do you
has
run
else
an
has a
it.
Dracios
Ewit?
to
Do you run
play.
an Ewit or anything like that? Because I mean, maybe you could spin that to be able to win at instant speed with Ewit chains or something like that with Cord.
I don't think I run an Ewit, but like you could definitely put in a Spellseeker and
Spellseeker might be the better one.
do shenanigans. Yeah.
Yeah. That's it.
Yeah, like
Go
I think
Calamax.
there's probably also space for it in. I mean, we say this every like I feel like Krark Sakashima is like the new Edric, but this could probably go in Krark Sakashima. They'll probably never play it, but I think
No,
it
see,
go in there.
Krark Sakashima pilots aren't as crazy as like
Those Edric pilots.
like most of the time when you're like this card seems insane in Krark Sakashima, the Krark Sakashima pilots are like, I know, isn't it hype? As opposed to the Edric pilots who are like, no, because rogue typing is slightly worse than Surveil, but better than Scry, and that it's like
Give me. I need hook me
with
up
all the
the
love in the
Edric
world
player.
for Edric players.
Yeah.
Hook me up with their dealer, man. I'll
And
have
then-
what he's having.
Actually, yeah, because I think it's actually sort of interesting because Krark Sakashima actually got two relatively cool things from the set. We won't get into this too much, but like both Displacer Kitten and Gale are pretty cool, I think, for Krark Sakashima. Like Gale specifically is pretty hot for that deck, right? Because you can like do like just absolutely insane chains from it. Because like you can just like recast the same sorcery over and over and over again and like basically rebuy your graveyard as like
Yeah, I
think
don't
it's,
know.
like, a tunable creature.
I don't
that's
know
sort of
why-
a double reach.
Like they realized with Flashback, they were like, you can't. We have to fix this so you can't like do dumb shenanigans
Yeah.
and get your flashback spells back by like bouncing them to your hand or
Remanding them
whatever.
or, like,
We
whatever.
understand this. And then since then they were like, actually on every other effect though, we're just gonna allow it. And I'm like,
Yeah, that's just fine. Resolves.
World
And then-
Freak, man, what a
And then we could probably we could go into this a bit more, I guess, talking about like the decks that are going to want Kitten. We can sort of use this as a bridge, I guess, but I think like some of the true stuff that's gonna be like awesome with Kitten are the Planeswalker commanders. Jessica's cool, but I think like the actual sauce is Displacer Kitten with Tevesh. I think that's just so hot, right?
How
Like
dare you? Matt's not here, and you can disrespect Elminster like that.
Okay, Elminster, great, like just fantastic meme value. I think the deck has some really awesome play patterns. I don't necessarily think it's a contender as is. 5 mana is rough. Sorry, Matt. Still love the deck. But yeah, like I think like Tevesh plus Displacer Kitten is just like so powerful, right? Like you're just like turning like every spell into a draw 2 most of the time, as long as you have like extra bodies left over. If you don't, it's still draw 2, blank, draw 2, blank, which is just like insane. And then especially with like the other commanders that you can attach to it, like being able to have like Thrasios plus Tevesh, and then just like be able to like chain through like half your deck with a Displacer Kitten, which is creature tutorable, is just it seems super powerful.
Finally, maybe this is too
broken
hot.
Sultai.
I was gonna say finally Tevesh has an actual reason to play.
Hey man, look at Tevesh Brody Hawk files.
Just to give me the hot water. Yeah.
But yeah, I think there's probably like a bridge there to talking about like decks that we think will like start to exist now because of Kitten. Obviously like Thrastim to pod stuff that Morgan had mentioned earlier, like Sans Red pod stuff is really interesting. You guys like have like thoughts about like trying to build any shells around Kitten?
No, I mean the biggest one that stood out to me was the Thras Timna pod. It just, obviously the 2 and 3 Timna into Kitten, Thrasios into Trinket Mage or whatever is like just so perfect. Sans Red, obviously. But, in those combination of colors, there's so many different things you can do. You can do, pure Consult, you can do Nas, you can do Doomsday if you want, if you want 1-card win. You can just do anything with those commanders. So, like, there'll be a new deck built around with Kitten, pod as the kind of main win condition, but I don't know. I guess maybe because you're doing pod stuff, you could see more. Yeah, but it's not even the kind of pod where you can play well into like stacks and rule of law and stuff, right?
Yeah, I think that's the one weakness still, is that like
unless you're potting away your rule of law creatures, which is not crazy.
Which is
but
fine.
It just does make
I
it
think,
hard to defend your pod.
I think like
I mean, pod's generally on the difficult side to counter, but
definitely is. Can't swan song it. Pretty huge. I think it's actually interesting that like we got the pod enabler for Thras Timna, but we didn't get the pod enabler that lets you also play Rule of Laws, because it's like Thrasios Timna Rule of Law is such a powerful deck theoretically, and then you realize that you just don't have good win cons still. I
don't even think it's. I'll say this again. I don't think it's that bad, because like imagine you just don't want to have like to be, so you don't want to be, obviously you can't be running your non-creature Rule of Laws. It's like the Raspberry Jam kind of idea with Anafenza, right? Where you couldn't run non-creature Rule of Laws because you're going to sack them as part of your combo. So long as you're, like, if you're playing an Archon Vimeria and an Ethersworn and Canonist, right? You can just, instead of podding your Thrasios Timna, you can pod those 2 into your combo and you're fine. You just can't double up on 3-drops, right?
Thanks for killing my enthusiasm for the deck by saying Raspberry Jam.
Yeah. I don't think it's like unplayable per se, but it's like it does definitely suffer from the problem of when you're playing Rule of Laws and you're trying to resolve your win con piece at sorcery speed. That just, inability to defend it is certainly still a problem. So yeah, I mean, it could enable that deck. I don't think that deck is going to, jump ahead of any of the other Thrasios Timna builds, but we'll see.
Well, I think the other, like, there's kind of a larger point there of like what exactly, is this providing that other things don't. And when you have like the level of card advantage that things like Thrasios and Tymna provide, having like this big network of like quasi one card win conditions becomes a lot less necessary. You can just find 2 cards pretty easily. So I think, it's going to be interesting in lower shells. I think it does a lot for Derevi, who already was like very close on a lot of different pod lines, and then it's also like much closer. You don't need the rock with Derevi, because if you have Derevi, you can untap lands with it. And so there's a bunch of stuff there.
Kitten to untap Cradle is sort of busted.
And then
I've been thinking about building Derevi because I wanted to do some takes on it with a different kind of like win condition play, like very instant speed. And maybe I hadn't really thought too much about the Kitten for Derevi because that was kind of at the back of my mind. But maybe that's enough to get me to actually pull the trigger and build Derevi. I'm sure you guys have the decks I play in our metas, they're very much lacking white, right? I play a lot of blue, I guess like Teamer mostly, and then my only black deck is Gitrog, which I haven't been playing too much recently. So, having a place to put my white cards would be nice. So, and Derevi is certainly something I've been looking at. So we'll see. Maybe I'll bust that out.
And then the other thing that I've been sort of working on, I don't have like a prototype list yet, but I'm in the sort of theory crafting phase, is Vanifar, where like instead of trying to do Hulk, you just do the top of your chain is Hullbreaker Horror, and then you have Displacer Kitten partway down, and then question mark profit.
Somehow that seems like most of the Vanifar lines that have been ever theory crafted. Just you do like this stuff, and then eventually you win.
But like, no. See, because the normal Vanifar lines are like very specific, but now here it's like, I don't know. You just you just need to get Displacer Kitten in play, untap your Vanifar, and then it feels like you just like if you can keep an untappy creature in play, which is not that hard because like
or like a Spellseeker or something, or
just then you just you chain up to like Spellseeker, do some shenanigans. It can kind of in a built-in way solve the problem of the fact that there aren't good untappers on 5, because like your 5 can literally just be anything that lets you cast a spell. Once you have a Displacer Kitten in play, as long as you can turn a flicker into an untap, which is not.
So is there like a torrential Gearhulk type effect at 5? Because then I guess you could do like Spellseeker to Vitalize to Displacer Kitten to like cast something to.
There's, I mean, at the worst case, there's Mnemonic Wall. I haven't gotten that far into going through every 5-drop yet, but there's probably something better than Mnemonic Wall.
Cool.
And then, I mean, obviously, Muldrotha as well, right?
Yes.
That is disgusting.
Yeah, where it is literally, it's just a combo with Muldrotha and anything that sacks to make mana.
Or just sacks at all, really. I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah, so
Seal
even if you don't
plus Displacer Kitten plus Muldrotha is still pretty disgusting.
Yeah, even if you don't.
It's basically permanent Yogg Will,
Yeah, because you just keep. Well, it still only casts permanents, but yes. You just keep resetting your Muldrotha off of every non-creature cast. So, obviously, if you have something like a Lotus Petal, then that is just a straight infinite. But even if you don't have a way to make mana, you just cast, you cast a creature, and then you cast a Seal of Removal, and then you can cast another creature, and then, if you want, you can sack the Seal of Removal, or not, you could cast some other enchantment or artifact.
So, do you run Baubles in Muldrotha?
No Baubles.
This is a potential reason to consider running Baubles, right?
The thing is that I think it's good enough.
I mean, it's definitely insane as is. It definitely is.
Yeah.
So,
Baubles certainly aren't terrible.
Keep in mind that Muldrotha already has Consult and, the Fimage LED animate dead combo, so you're kind of at a point where like putting in more stuff to enable what is now like your third combo is not.
I mean, you could consider. I mean,
that's definitely
just getting
that raises.
I was gonna say you could consider bumping
stuff.
this up to a more main tier.
To my second combo. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just nutty and Muldrotha for sure.
And it's also just like Muldrotha makes it super easy to assemble in a bunch of different ways. Like you can just assemble it off an intuition, or like you have entombs and you have reanimates and neoform and yada yada. Like you can spell seeker, get a neoform, get the kitten, and then like recast the spell seeker and use the kitten to flicker it. And
I guess the thing with Muldrotha though is that you already have a blue 4-drop that's a 1-card win condition with Muldrotha, and Xur's weirding, so do you really
yeah, but you can't get that one. That was a lot harder to get.
Yeah.
There's not nearly as many permanents that let you get it out of your deck.
Yeah. Cool. What else we got to talk about with Displacer?
Well, I mean, aside from just decks, I think we actually pretty well covered a wide extent of the decks that are going to be using Displacer Kitten. Obviously, we're all going to be blindsided by somebody putting it in a deck that it has no business being in, and it's going to be like a deck that people are talking about for months immediately after this episode. But I feel like we've done a pretty good job of.
But I'm looking forward to that, to be honest.
Yeah, no, it sounds great.
It's going to be some random commander from like New Capenna's secret, like they're the commander set or something. That's like,
I mean, it is.
I totally forgot that you existed.
It is legitimately like. It might be the most viscerally disgusting in Tivit.
Yeah. Just because you're like, and now we're all doing the voting process every time I cast a spell.
Plus, also just like, okay, every time I cast a spell, I'm getting, 2 treasures and some clues. Like,
but the worst part, Morgan, the worst part is that people actually have to consider what they're giving you every time, because it's unlike any other, like, most other things where like the table has to decide, like even like Crux Sakashima, like once you decide you're not interacting, you just sort of let it go until like whatever. With Tivit, it's sort of weird that it's the inverse of that, where every time you have to make a decision about Tivit on the same turn, it actually gets more and more difficult because they keep accumulating resources from their previous votes, and you have to like really like get down with the table about, okay, what are we actually giving them this time? Because it still matters, and it will continue to matter until they actually win the game.
I guess one thing too with commanders with Kitten, I was joking about all these new commanders that I don't even know yet, or that are there's so many new commanders that are coming. It's hard to track all of them. But it's just every time a new commander is printed, like just check Kitten. It's one of those things you're just gonna have to check now, right? Is this broken with Displacer Kitten? Because I think a lot of, like, maybe not a lot of the time, but the ones where you do hit, it's like, oh yeah, this is broken with Kitten. They're gonna be super broken with Kitten. That's just I think that's something you got to be doing from now on.
But yeah, I mean, aside from that, we have there's sort of another maybe not even mini topic, just I would say like another side of the discussion on Kitten here as well, which is, aside from just like putting it in decks and like talking over the direct combos with it, I think it's actually pretty interesting to have a discussion about how Kitten actually affects the deck building and sort of play patterns of the decks that it's going to be going into, because, well, I think you could probably just stick it in a lot of the decks that want it and like not change the deck at all, and it would be fine. I think there's actually something to be said for, like, in the wake of Kitten being printed and putting it into your deck, sort of reevaluating how you have to build the deck, because it does have some like relatively interesting requirements and incentives in terms of like what you want to be doing with it, right? I think the biggest one is the fact that realistically, for Kitten, you want to be a lot of the time in green, to be able to actually consistently tutor for it. Obviously, Neoform and Eldritch Evolution for 4 are pretty easy to get a lot of the time, and even then, just having the rest of the creature tutors is really important. But it's sort of weird for that incentive, right? Because you want to be in green because you want to have a lot of creature tutors, but the actual kitten itself doesn't really want creatures, right? It wants you to be casting non-creatures while having like one other meaningful permanent in play. So I think it's actually interesting to think about that, because like it wants you to be in the creature color, and it wants you to be playing all the creature tutors, but it also wants you to have like a relatively high density of like non-creature spells that you can readily cast into it, right?
Yeah, which also has like a pretty large impact on like the kind of hate you're trying to support or be vulnerable to or not, as the case may be. So I think it's actually like I actually don't think it's gonna, weirdly enough, like despite the fact that it might kind of be it's one of the most powerful cards we've gotten, like at least in the last couple of years.
Just like in a vacuum, yeah.
Like in a vacuum, and in terms of like what synergies it has and like things it can do. But I feel like it's actually just like not quite going to. It's not going to see a ton of
in a
play.
vacuum.
Sorry,
Well,
not.
no,
Yeah, that's why I wasn't
not in a
gonna
vacuum,
say
but
that.
just sort of just like in like just sort of like in terms of like not in a specific deck or not in a specific archetype. Or
I was gonna say, I don't even think this card's
like,
more
it's
powerful than like Beseiju.
Sure.
Like it has a lot more going on, and like I'm not.
Yeah, it does more
like,
fancy things.
Morgan
but
didn't
Beseiju's
say,
a way
Morgan
more
didn't
powerful
say
card.
specifically. Well, Morgan didn't say like better. He said more powerful. I wouldn't call like Beseiju. I'm not gonna get into the discussion, but
Okay.
I don't necessarily
Sorry.
think
The
Beseiju is,
point that I'm trying to
powerful card, but it's a really
make
good
is
card.
that
Anyway.
like it enables a lot of combos that, like, at least on the surface, are they
all seem
appear to
like
be
pretty
at least
good.
very close to good enough. And I think given
That's
how
not super
many combos that are all like at least almost good enough it enables, I actually don't think it's going to see very much play, like proportional to the number of those combos. Because like it's in such an interesting spot in like, okay, yeah, we have this like creature based combo engine that enables a whole bunch of combos, but it's you have to be playing a bunch of non-creature spells, and it's vulnerable to like things that these slower creature based combo decks have historically wanted to not be vulnerable to.
Well,
like
it's just also it's in blue, and then if you're in blue and black, which is a decent amount of cEDH decks, you've got Thoracle as your primary win condition, or Nas, or whatever. So like it's not going to take the spotlight there. So now you're looking for sans black, blue decks. I mean, it's got to be, if you want to do stuff with Pod, it's got to be in blue green, and then you're looking at blue green decks. Well, I mean, Kinnan and all the other viable blue green decks are kind of doing their own thing usually, right? Like they're or there might be consistency issues in pure blue green of finding the Pod. Not too many tutors find Pod in pure blue green, so now you're in Bant maybe for e-tutor, and then you can kind of like maneuver your do tutor chains to get to e-tutor, and then maybe that's where it fits in, like Bant, but that's like a small
where's my mage that gets things that cost 4 or 5?
Yeah. I don't actually think that it's that bad in Simic specifically to get access to the birthing pod, and honestly, I don't actually think you actually need the birthing pod. Just being able to like tutor for Displacer Kitten plus Trigger Mage is really nice. In a lot of those lists, like I could totally see this going to Kinnan. I feel like I have this feeling like Kinnan's already Trigger Mage. And just being like Kitten doubling the rocks that you're blinking seems pretty hot as well. Obviously, like I'm not saying it's a shoe in Kitten, but I can like see it sort of there. I think like again, yeah, like just going back and sort of expanding on Morgan talked about like the hate that you're playing into with it. It's actually like really interesting as well on that front, because it's sort of weird in that like it's a combo that loses to like it's a creature tutorable combo that doesn't work through Rule of Law and doesn't work through Collector Oof, but does work through Curse Totem, which is just like that's just super weird, right? Like you don't see that a whole
Yeah,
lot.
for sure.
So I think there is actually space to be explored there in terms of potentially using it as like an anti-meta type of combo, where if you are seeing potentially like a mid-range fest with stuff like First Totem and like anti-draw effects, I think could be relatively powerful against as well. Basically I'm talking about just like dressed the hell meta. But like stuff that's optimized for those mirrors, I feel like it's actually sort of interesting because it intersects with the tutors that you might already be playing in those types of decks, while also like bypassing the hate that's aimed at those decks specifically, right?
Yeah.
That being
Cool,
said, I
cool.
mean it also just to the current meta stuff, so be wary.
Yeah, is there anything else we want to talk about with Displacer Kitten before we wrap up the top?
Oh, I guess we should theoretically also talk about a combo that we sort of missed but was spotted relatively early by a user on Reddit. I hate that I don't very good. Anyway, which is sort of an interesting concept as well that you might want to explore if you're listening. I don't think it's been successfully implemented in decks, really. I mean, except for I guess one. But the idea is that Displacer Kitten has actually turned both recruiters into quote unquote one card combos. You just need a Imperial Recruiter or a Recruiter of the Guard plus a non-creature spell. And by doing that, it's obviously an insane amount of mana, so you would have to do it over multiple turns or have a lot of startup mana, but you can Recruiter for the Kitten and then blink the Recruiter to go find a Venser. And then you can actually use the Venser plus the Kitten, plus one of the spells that you have in play, or one of the rocks that you have in play to make infinite mana. And then you can use the Recruiter to go find an outlet as well. That seems actually sort of pretty interesting for Jeskai decks. Even potentially like Sans Black decks. Potentially you could be on like ETB stuff and like Fast Brews, something like that. It's obviously have done some testing for that in Yorion as well, because you're just already playing Recruiter plus Venser plus like Frigate Mage or Spellseeker or stuff like that. But yeah, it's sort of interesting stuff, right?
Oh
Just
yeah,
being able to turn recruiters into one card combos. Although I'm sure there was already some to do that, but this is with like a decent card quality.
and also one card combos that don't require you to play freaking Final Fortune.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Cool. Well, that wraps up for our discussion of Displacer Kit, which means it's time to move on to everyone's favorite segment, Gut Check.
Get check.
Gut check.
Thank you, as always, Morgan, for bringing the energy.
You got it.
Okay, so this week's Gut Check, I want to ask you guys to rank the following sets in terms of how impactful they are to cEDH. Okay, and it's going to be Modern Horizons 1, Modern Horizons 2, Commander Legends 1, and the most recent Commander Legends set, Commander Legends Baldur's Gate.
So many sets. I don't even remember what's in all those sets.
Sorry, impactful at the time of their release or now?
Yeah, you can pick whatever you want. I mean, okay, I'll say, you know, Commander Legends has Hull Breacher banned, right? Like I don't discount the impact of Hull Breacher, right? Like that card got banned, so I mean I would definitely factor.
I'm seeing some stuff in one of these sets that's like, all right, yeah, all right, I'll sure, whatever. I don't have an actual answer to this, but
yeah.
Hold on,
Okay,
I just want to double
yeah,
check
just run it.
MH1.
Yeah, just run it.
No, we gave you time to do it.
Send it.
Check it.
Send it.
Send it. Well, you've had time forever. Just send it.
Yeah, okay.
Send it.
Okay, so we're back after 20,000 years of deliberation, which, totally within the spirit of gut check. Don't at me. Okay, so, I guess, Reed, since you were the most kind of indecisive, and
can I go last?
we'll let you go first.
No, you're going first.
Seriously, let me go last.
No, you're going first.
No,
Okay.
yeah, you're going first.
My list is MH1, Commander Legends, MH2, CLB.
Holy.
Yep.
Wow.
This is why I want to go last.
Dude, I love it. I love it.
These picks. Do you guys want to go first, or should I explain?
Yeah, okay, let's just get our list out of the way, then we can discuss.
All right, sure.
Yeah, okay, me and Morgan, I think, are definitely on the same page. Commander Legends 1 at first place. Second place, I have MH1. Then third place, I have MH2. And then lastly, Commander Legends Baldur's Gate.
Yeah. Okay, so I have the same list as you.
Yeah.
Okay. I think...
Okay, Reed, justify your insanity.
After looking through the cards, I think put together, Collector Oof and Ranger Captain of Aos have far more impact than basically all the cards in Commander Legends.
Force of Negation was also an image.
I don't even care about those. I think
wait,
exactly
hang on a second.
Collector Oof is
including
like
Force of Vigor.
Sorry,
not including Paul Breacher. No,
right.
We're talking about current Commander.
I did say whatever, although I said you should probably.
I think
Paul Breacher,
I think Collector Oof has more of an impact than like basically every card in Commander Legends, Commander Legends 1 combined. I think Collector Oof is like secretly like the meta defining card currently underneath Oracle and Dockside.
I do think Collector is very, very impactful. I don't know if I'd go that far.
I think Collector Oof is the only reason why green stax decks exist currently.
Okay. When you phrase it like green stax decks, I mean, historically, all these stax decks are also
wait, hang on a
white,
second.
and
Like, because all the ones that aren't green would just get run over by Winota? Like, sure. But, or like, sorry,
also,
all the ones that were green, if they didn't have Oof, would just get run over by Winota? Like, sure. But that's not, like, I don't know how much that has to do with Collector versus...
no, because also I, like, non-green stacks that isn't Winota, I don't actually think really exists. Don't at me.
Right, because they get run over by Winota.
I think
this is the problem of Winota, is that every other stacks deck just gets run over by Winota.
Wait, what non-green stacks decks without Winota would be good? Name like your top one, like just the best non-green stacks deck that isn't Winota.
I mean, like Heliod Ballistas has some things going for it. It's debatable exactly how much of a stacks deck it is, because
but
my answer is going to be Volo.
Like
Volo, Azorius Volo.
Like they're so, even without Winota existing, they're so much worse than the green stack stacks because you just don't have access to the same like toolkit consistently. And Collector Roof is
but I think there's
it's green. It's green as a whole that's propping up those stack decks, not just Collector Roof.
I think Collector Roof is doing a lot of the heavy lifting.
It's certainly nice and helps a lot, but I don't think it's...
Well, okay, hang on a second. Do you think that if Collector Roof wasn't green, let's say it was white, that there would be non-green stacks decks that would suddenly become much more viable? No? Okay, so, see, this is...
I think the card being on a body is the card being on a body is what it, like, no rod
then
on
when
a
you're in
body
green, you get to tutor for that, yeah.
Wait, what? No, but I'm saying, like, it was a 2/2 creature that cast for 1 and a white.
Yeah,
it's still, that doesn't make...
Let's be honest, it really should have been. What is with this green?
I'm saying, like, put it in any color you want. I think it props up the entire green stacks archetype, which is, like, basically the entire stacks archetype currently in Sans Renota, which is, like, a third of the meta is propped up by, like this one card plus a shell of like other similarly powerful cards, but those similarly powerful cards aren't in these sets.
I'm pretty sure we can go back to our color episodes on,
but
like, green,
I guess like
talking about color combinations to kind of account for that, and I really just don't think Collector Oof plays
like
that significant a role in that.
So
like, it plays a role at a sizable role, but not like it's not
okay. If Winota, like if Winota didn't exist, would the existence or non-existence of Collector Roof affect, like, the best stax decks would be green, right?
Yes.
Even if Collector Roof didn't exist.
Yes, the best. No. If Renota didn't exist and Collector Roof didn't exist, the best stack stacks would be green. They would be unplayable.
Really?
I think the playability of this is what I'm saying. The playability of the stack stacks of the best stack stacks in the format, which happen to be green and plus Winota, are significantly affected by the existence of Collector Roof.
Actually, hot take. I was just thinking about this now. I'm gonna throw this one out there. I think a contender for one of the best non-green stack. I mean, we've got a couple. I mean, you could look at like some kind of like Timna, Sakashima or Timna something. But I was gonna say Rafine. Hot take. I think Rafine is one of the better non-green stacks.
Yeah,
sure.
It definitely could be if you built it that way.
I do think though that like if you're talking about the set that affected like every cEDH deck the most, or like the largest number of cEDH decks, it's probably Commander Legends 1. Or it almost certainly is Commander Legends 1. I'm talking about like the overall impact on like the cEDH meta at large.
I don't know, man. Jewel Lotus. In fairness, I was counting Hullbreacher.
I was also counting Hullbreacher. Yeah.
Does that change?
Does
that change your
math? That card was the most fucking
like,
format warping shit ever.
It's the only card in any of these sets that's been banned. Yes, it's like Commander Legends. It's Commander Legends 1 if you're also like including Hullbreacher.
I even think even if you exclude Hullbreacher, I think it's close.
Okay, so
right, which is why you picked that list.
So I mean, Legends. They each had. Wait, that's hilarious. They each had an enemy color dual land cycle that are roughly on the same power level. Like what? Commander Legends 1 had Jewel Lotus. Jessica's
it had the partners, like the partners. The partners
is alone.
This is which is why I'm saying if you're counting for the impact on the raw number of cEDH decks, yes, it's Commander Legends 1 because of
but even just the raw the format is impacted by the fact that these other decks now are something you have to account for.
Yeah, I took this into consideration. I think Oof has a larger impact on like the tournament meta.
Wild,
but
man.
anyway,
it's actually wild. So here you can, Reed was he gets annoyed whenever I make a gut check that isn't, immediately translatable as like some kind of poll that you can.
Our viewers would also get annoyed. Ask them here. We'll get the response.
This is how we'll do it. Just vote on who was like the most recent.
What? No, because you guys had the same list, so it just literally.
I mean, well, even that does even more of an advantage
sounds
for you
like
because our vote is split.
2-1, easy game.
I'll put up a thing for just all of the sets on what people think is the most impactful.
Okay, this is Reed trying to back out because he doesn't want to lose.
No, 100% I will.
Or it's true.
I wouldn't do that stuff. It's just 2 options isn't good enough for voting. You need more than 2 options.
Sure.
Could you imagine if we didn't have this much Discord engagement? Honestly, how would our podcast ever survive?
We love all of our Discord users. Okay.
No, I mean you obviously don't, right? Yeah, it's fine. I'll just stop posting gut checks in
Discord. Okay, so that wraps up gut check. We have a listener question coming to us this week from DJ Yavamaya. So DJ Yavamaya asks, Stax has become a sort of umbrella term in EDH for all sorts of resource and action denial strategies, with things like hate bears and prison sort of getting lost underneath the term. Could you briefly describe the subcategories underneath Stax and discuss whether it would be beneficial to the community to recover the distinctions between them?
Yeah, I think probably at this point it's like I think it would definitely be beneficial to subdivide Stax a bit more. Honestly, probably subdivide all of the major archetypes a bit more.
Although I don't think you would subdivide it based on hate bears in prison, because I think almost the overwhelming majority of Stax decks in cEDH are hate bears centric. And I think a more interesting or more relevant kind of subcategory distinction is what sorts of maybe omissions or kind of like stacks, like maybe you're playing a stacks based deck that is omitting for whatever reason rule of law or something like that, right? Like or like I mentioned earlier about Raspberry Jam, not running the enchantment based rule of laws or something like that.
Well,
maybe some way to distinguish kind of notable omissions.
You could probably also
stacks.
have like cross categorization in terms of like you could have it such that like you have action denial strategies, and then you have like card denial strategies and mana denial strategies, and then you like every stack is some combination of those, right?
Well,
So like I could be playing like an action
define...
denial and a mana denial strategy if I'm playing like a rule of law deck with like land destruction or something, right?
I think also one thing that's like sort of been lost is that specifically in my mind, stacks at the very least requires some number of symmetric pieces, whereas Hate Bears doesn't necessarily require that. Like I would never, a deck that was running, say, like you're playing Thrasios Tim, you're playing Razakats, okay, and you're playing Razakats without Collector Roof, just so we don't have to deal with that. So you have your Draneth Magistrate, Opposition Agent, Douthie Voidwalker,
even Mind Sensor,
Notion Thief, Mind Sensor.
Yeah, I don't think anyone really counts that as a stacks deck.
Well, but what if, like, I mean, that's because Cats isn't really archetypally a stacks deck, but
I mean, it's flirted with that in the past. I mean, that's certainly what I was doing with Raspberry Jam and certain.
But you were playing
is like the other kind of similar deck to Raspberry Jam that was kind of also flirting with that kind of stacks.
I don't think Pet Cemetery ever was actually on like True Rule of Laws.
No, I mean neither was.
I don't think
the rule of law creatures you're playing are symmetrical at least, right?
No, but I don't know that Pet Cemetery.
You don't think they were ever?
No, I think Pet Cemetery is specifically like it's like a mid-range Tinmatana Reanimator deck that's not stacksy. It's just like mid-range and Reanimator. Yeah.
All I remember is that it was similar-ish to what I was doing.
But yeah, like it's sort of yeah, I think it is useful to have like subcategorization under stacks. It's hard to have like exclusive categories for stuff, just because there's like having to have 100 cards in a stacks deck means that there's going to be a large amount of overlap on like a lot of the strategies, and it's really hard to say like, yeah, this deck is like only a prison stacks deck when like a lot of the cards are just so widely powerful and applicable that they're going to get played across all stacks decks. So I think it's probably more productive to like describe the major aspects of, or like have descriptors available for the major aspects of stacks deck. This goes for mid-range and turbo as well, but specifically for stacks at this point, like just have ways that you can like efficiently describe what a stacks deck is trying to achieve.
I mean,
so,
I'm
like,
not sure.
I'm playing like win con-less like action denial stacks with like a smattering of whatever.
Okay, I mean, I just looked up on the database. I can't even on an outdated. There's no list for Pet Cemetery. It looks like, but there is a Sans Blue Razaketh deck, which is Tim Natana, doing Razaketh Reanimator. It's also got like Void Winnower, but it is on Archon of Emeria, Eidolon of Rhetoric, Ethersworn Canonist, the same sort of thing that was going on with Raspberry Jam. No enchantment based deck.
Yeah, it's definitely like a difficult line to walk, because like there's a few factors. First of all, 100 card singleton just kind of by definition means that that decks become more homogenous by virtue of the fact that like you just need to get so much deeper into the card pool, which means, generally, like if you're building a modern deck, you start with the cards that are like the most powerful in your archetype, which will vary largely from archetype to archetype. And then as you get farther down the list, it's like, okay, at a certain point, do we just start putting in, generically powerful cards?
I'll just play like a playset of Thoughtseize and a playset of like Fatal Push. Right.
Or Fatal Push or Lightning Bolt or things like that. But here, like, theoretically you could build a modern deck with what you'd want, like theoretically you could have as few as 4 copies of 12 distinct cards.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, that's not how they're built.
I'm
Probably the average is more like 20, but here the average is like 60, 70. Yeah. So like, you just wind up running a bunch of the same cards, and then that makes it hard to be like, oh, well, this archetype is, or like, this deck is a stax deck, when like, okay, well, it's a stax deck, but that's defined by like 10 out of the 100 cards in the list. It just makes coming up with consistent definitions and applying them consistently very difficult.
Also, it's definitely a lost cause to try and change naming in cEDH to be something beneficial.
It's been a lost cause for like literal years at this point. Like, it's just not like, even worth the time.
Farm and all this. It's just.
Oh, just even before farm, like heavy, like adaptive as a label. Like, are you kidding me?
No,
just like anything.
I mean, in fairness, I asked you to define adaptive, and what you gave me was incoherent, so...
Yeah, it was never coherent. There was never a coherent descriptor for adaptive.
You were using the term on the database at the time!
I understand. There's a reason we no longer use the term. It's always been terrible.
Cool.
Also, for the record, that was never my idea to have to categorize my strategy.
Wow,
we just had them.
Reed just throwing everyone under the bus.
I'm not throwing a specific person under the
shit.
bus. I'm just saying.
Actually, just passing the buck off to someone else. Cool, man.
Yeah,
I guess.
Operative word being someone else.
Well, that about wraps it up for this episode. If you guys like to reach out to us with any questions, comments, or concerns, you can contact us on Twitter at Into the North Pod, our email, intothenorthpodcast@gmail.com, or on our Discord server, which we love all of our Discord users and all the engagement. The invite link for which can be found in the description for this episode. An extra special thanks to all of our patrons who help cover the expenses for our show and allow us to work towards improving the quality of the podcast. If you too would like to become a patron, we are at patreon.com/northpodcast. Another way you can support us is via our TCG Player affiliate link. So anytime you want to purchase something from TCG Player, if you use our affiliate link, which is in the podcast/YouTube description, a portion of your purchase goes towards supporting the podcast. Thank you as always to the band Vox Cadre for our lovely podcast music, to Nate Slover for our equally lovely podcast logo, and to our video editor Manta Ray Hat. Next episode will be out in 2 weeks. Until then, see ya.